Protect your online privacy with NordVPN. Browse securely, access content from anywhere, and keep your data safe with military-grade encryption. NordVPN.com. That's NORDVPN.com. Not just a glove, it's a 44 Pro. Crafted with dedication, made for performance, and built to last. Get your custom glove today at 44pro.com and experience the 44 Pro difference. That's 44pro.com, 44 Pro.
Our patented handles were launched in 2018. We continue to push the boundaries of strength training. Join us in making your training more natural and effective. Visit Engels90.com to learn more and revolutionize your workout.
Looking for tickets to the hottest shows, games, and events? Ticket Liquidator is your one-stop shop for great prices, no hassles, and guaranteed tickets. Whether it's sports, theater, or concert, for the best seats at the biggest events, start with Ticket Liquidator today at ticketliquidator.com. Ticket Liquidator.
Introducing Bark in the Belly Premium Dog Food. 100% of profits go to help dogs in need.
Over 30% of adults struggle with chronic foot and joint pain, and many face mobility limitations as they age. But a revolutionary Comfort First slipper has taken the wellness world by storm. Try Cloud Slides and feel you are walking on the clouds. Cloud Slides.
Yes, it very much is the Wicked Boston Show on Rogue Media Network. And I'm Wicked Cam Stuart, or something like that. And on today's episode, we are hitting Bruins hard, man. Maybe the hottest team in the NHL right now. 6 wins in a row. They look to make it 7 tonight over the Leafs, who they've already beaten in the last 4 days. And the Leafs are coming off back-to-back losses. We're going to talk about how Marco Sturm has turned this thing around. And I've got to admit to everybody, I might have been wrong. I might have been wrong about Marco Sturm, and I might have been wrong about this Bruins team. Nestor Quixtan of Heavy Sports is also going to come on and talk about this Fraser Minten, Brandon Carlo trade. Should the Leafs stop answering the phone when the Bruins call them for a trade proposal? Because it's barely 8 months after the trade, and it looks like the Bruins have already won it far and away. We'll talk to Nestor about all the things that led to that, because it might actually be Mikko Rantanen and Mitch Marner's fault that the Leafs lost this trade with the Boston Bruins. And plus, we will look at another crazy rumor for the Red Sox number 2 starter. It's now Freddy Peralta, after it was Tarik Skubal, after it was Joe Ryan. Which of these guys are they actually going to get, and which of these guys actually fit? All that and more coming up on this episode of the Wicked Boston Show, your lunchtime alternative to Boston Sports Talk Radio, right here, high noon Eastern Time, live on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. So if you're new to the show, do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe. We'll give you all the Boston sports news you're looking for every day without the bullshit of Boston Sports Talk Radio, right here on the Wicked Boston Show. We start where we start. It is in the thumbnail. It is why you're here. It's what we're going to talk about. The talk around Boston is how fun this Bruins team is and how they're one of the hottest teams in hockey as it stands right now. 6 wins in a row, going for number 7 tonight against the old rivals, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who they've already beaten this week up in Toronto on Saturday night. A lovely 5-3 victory, but who could have seen this coming? I didn't. In fact, I've got to put my hand up right now. I was wrong about this Bruins team so far. But what I'm definitely wrong about is Marco Sturm. Okay, I did not see this coming. This hot start to the year for the Bruins, being second in the Atlantic Division, only behind the Montreal Canadiens, and in a playoff spot 2.5 weeks before American Thanksgiving, which is when we have to take note of who's actually in a playoff spot. And I think the biggest reason why might be because of Marco Sturm. Okay? I was not in on this hire. I really was not in on it. And it was clearly because not only did Marco Sturm have a good pedigree, because he did, coaching the German national team, being an assistant with the Kings, helping develop some of those young guys, but it was really because he was cheap. He was controllable. He wasn't going to bring in his assistant coaches. And I was very skeptical of what Marco Sturm could do without being an NHL head coach before. But he's got this team playing a very distinct style, and it's a style that is working right now, and it's a style that's sustainable for the rest of the year. And it makes me think, remember that comment a few weeks ago? We don't have everybody on the bus yet. He kept talking about buy-in. The guys who aren't buying in aren't playing. And I'm losing my mind saying, then why aren't these guys on the team? Why are they on the team still? It feels like they've got just about everybody on the bus right now. And that's what gets you to 6 straight wins and a total buy-in from this team. You have everybody on the bus. They've got a grinder of the game award that apparently even David Pastrnak wants to go out there and win. It's not a team MVP. It's not the guy who gets the hat trick. It's the guy who makes the gritty play, the right play, the defensive play. And if that doesn't play in Boston, there's nowhere in the league it's going to play. People are eating this up. And he's been a hard ass, right? He's disciplined some guys. He has benched guys. And I was told that doesn't work in the NHL anymore. You got to be a player's coach. You got to coddle these guys. You got to support them. Well, it's sure as hell working right now. Mason Lohrei sits 5 straight games. He goes in there out of necessity on Saturday night because they're down a defenseman and he's playing in Toronto against the Leafs. It wasn't like, you've done your job, Mason. You're back in the lineup. He was in the lineup because Charlie McAvoy was out of it. And he puts in 2 assists. Casey Middlestat, benched a few weeks ago in Utah. Craig Button has this just scathing review of Casey Middlestat, how he's not a competitive player. He's not a guy who's going to give you effort. It's never been a skill issue. Since then, 7 points in 9 games. He's responded pretty well to that. And you've seen the video now of Marco Sturm flipping out on these guys, in the locker room. I was trying to be nice, but enough of that. You guys saw how it felt this summer when you sucked and you had to explain that to all your buddies. We can't keep playing wide open hockey and expect to win games. If I play the video, my video will get taken down. So, and I keep thinking of what Marco Sturm has done this year. And there is another coaching comparison that comes to mind. And I know a lot of people aren't going to like when I start with this, but hear me out. In a lot of the positive ways, Marco Sturm reminds me of Rod Brindamore. Like total defensive buy-in, going for depth over like top quality at the top because they don't have that, and maximizing talent from the guys they have. Okay, Marco Sturm is not going to blame every loss on the refs. He's not going to flip out. He's not going to try and get a coach to not do the handshake line. He's not going to do any of that shithousery stuff. But in a lot of the positive traits of Rod Brindamore, you also see in Marco Sturm. Because Brindamore kind of had a similar start in that he was a young enough guy, right? I think Sturm is like 50. Brindamore would have been, late 40s when he took over that job. Young guy, how's he going to connect with these players? He's kind of going with an old school style. Can that still connect with these players today? And it has. It really, really has. And, you look at some of these guys who are thriving for the Bruins this year. I look at someone like Marat Husnudinov. That guy would be a perfect Carolina Hurricane. Perfect. Like, that's the kind of guy that thrives under Rod Brindamore. He's thriving as your number one center under Marco Sturm. And, we can laugh at Carolina's Eastern Conference record and all that. They've won one conference final game in the last 20 years. They've been 3 or 4 times. But they consistently get the most out of their talent. Fast, defensive-minded, versatile guys who play with a bit of an edge. Obviously not as much of an edge as the Florida Panthers, right? Because they got pushed around in that conference final. But you're looking at a team that has a bit of the makings of those Carolina teams with more of an edge. They're not as talented as those Hurricanes teams are. Don't get me wrong. But they've got a lot of the positive traits there. So I was wrong about Marco Sturm to start off this year. I absolutely was. And I'm pleasantly surprised by how well he's got this team playing, albeit a month into the season. But I was skeptical whether there was going to be a real system with him, whether there was going to be a real trademark defensive style, or if that was just a bunch of people blowing smoke. They weren't. He's got it. He's got it so far. And while I'm on the topic of giving out awards and heaping praise among the people running the Boston Bruins for the first month of the season, might I continue with someone I have been very skeptical of for quite a long time. First month of the season, good start for our pal Don Sweeney, the GM of the Boston Bruins. Everything in the last couple of months has gone sneaky right for Don Sweeney. Okay? First off, he hired Marco Sturm, and I just heaped a bunch of praise on Marco Sturm. Do I love the reasons why he hired him? No. I think it was because Sturm was cheap. He was not going to bring in his own assistants, which Don Sweeney doesn't like, and he was going to be a little controllable. But it's worked so far. You have to say that. It's working better than what Mike Sullivan is doing in New York. And let's look at the moves. Charlie Coyle to Colorado. He's not even there anymore. He plays for Columbus. Will Zellers coming on the back end, 9 points in his first 10 games playing for a big-time college hockey program at North Dakota. So far, so good after winning the USHL MVP last year. What an unreal injection of skill that could be in the future alongside someone like, I don't know, James Higgins. How about the Justin Brazeau trade? In a vacuum, it didn't look great. First part of this season, 12 points in 12 games. But he's not doing it for the team the Bruins traded him to. He's doing it for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And man, could the Wild really use that outburst from Justin Brazeau right now. But in return, you got Marat Husnudinov, your first-line center for now, but who's also a great fit with this system and this Bruins team. I don't know what he would have been for Joe Sacco, but he certainly is a great fit for Marco Sturm. Victor Arvidsson, all of a sudden, he's got a scoring touch. That could be a good guy to flip at the deadline. Tanner Jeannot. the worst deal that Don Sweeney made this year, and still don't like the contract. But he's on a 30-point pace. 30 points, maybe. Be the second highest point total of his career. On the flip side, if you want to look at it as Tanner Jeannot replaced Trent Frederick, that's a hell of a replacement. Because Trent Frederick, for his points, Trent Frederick is on a 5-point pace this season for the Edmonton Oilers on an 8-year deal. That is a massive loss for Edmonton. Massive. Even though the AAV is pretty small. So if you're looking at it you're looking at it the way of you're picking between Tanner Jeannot and Trent Frederick, big win. And how about Morgan Geekie? Extended him. I was skeptical of that. Like, can he be a 30-goal scorer again? Does he need to have David Pastrnak with him? Can he play up and down the lineup? We might not need to know that because he's got 11 goals. He's got as many goals as Sidney Crosby does this year. And Sid's having a damn good year. It's on a 50-goal pace right now. So it's not crazy to think he can go over 30 again, which I was skeptical of. Oh, yeah. And how about the Fraser Minten trade? That's a pretty good one, wasn't it? It's looking good so far. Brandon Carlo was kind of playing his way out the door with the Bruins. Liked Carlo a couple years ago, but certainly was on the decline the last 2 seasons with the Boston Bruins. And you got a 21-year-old center, two-way center, with a hockey IQ that's through the roof, who just put the game away on Saturday night against who else but his old team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you get a first-round pick out of it from a team that's, for now, behind you in the standings. If you had gotten a 2026 first for Brad Marchand, you would be in absolute dreamland right now. But it's bizarro first month of the season because the Bruins are second in the Atlantic. And everything's suddenly coming up Don Sweeney. How crazy is that? And how fun is this Bruins team? Do they look like a playoff squad to you? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, and it keeps you up to date on all this great Boston sports content 5 days a week, live on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well, here on the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stuart. I don't want to stop talking about the Fraser Minten trade. So when we come back, we're going to have a special guest. Nestor Quixtan of The Heavy Sports is going to come on after he wrote a terrific article about this Fraser Minten for Brandon Carlo trade. And is it the Bruins fleecing the Leafs again? And how did Mikko Rantanen have a role in this trade being made? We'll go over that next after this short break on the Wicked Boston Show.
Welcome to Kit Bag, the ultimate destination for football fans. Whether you're cheering for Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, or any other top club, for true football passion, think Kit Bag. Visit kitbag.com today. That's KITBAG.com. Kit Bag.
Our professionals are not only experts in managing urgent concerns, but also in providing top-notch preventative health care. We're proud to connect pet owners to a vast network of licensed veterinary professionals, ready to address any immediate concerns. Book your first appointment today.
At Mitzi, we believe the right light can transform any space. Mitzi has the perfect design for you. Beautiful, well-made lighting without the high price tag. Discover your perfect light at Mitzi.com. That's MITZI.com. Mitzi. Streamline event and appointment booking with Amelia's sleek, modern, and fully customizable booking forms. WPAmelia.com. That's WPAMELIA.com. Amelia.
Everybody at Equalife really has a passion and a real interest in helping people feel well. How much further can we go to get you feeling even better? It is a complete partnership between the two of us.
At Tusain's, we understand that maintaining a healthy lifestyle can be challenging, especially in today's fast-paced world. That's why our mission is to make fitness accessible to everyone, anywhere. Visit Tusains.com today and start your journey to better health. That's TOUSAINS.com.
Welcome back to the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stuart, Rogue Media Network. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to have a special guest here in just a moment. Wanted to thank you again for tuning in live on YouTube, noon Eastern time every weekday, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. There is a buzz around this Bruins team. 6 wins in a row, and you know the Bruins fans really love it when they take it to Toronto like they did on Saturday night. And now everyone's asking the question, did the Bruins fleece the Leafs again? Let's bring in an expert on that subject. Next, Nestor Quixtan of Heavy Sports, who just wrote this great article this week, actually last night. The Maple Leafs messed up by trading away the wrong prospect. It's Bruins Leafs for the second time in 4 days. Fraser Minten versus Brandon Carlo matchup. Nestor, before we get into the trade, how are the feelings around this Leafs team and this Leafs fan base right now?
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. So it's usually plan the parade in Toronto, or everything's going to hell in a handbasket. And right now, unfortunately, it seems like it's the latter. Things were kind of like riding high with the 3-game winning streak. To be honest, just to backtrack a little bit, the first 40 minutes of that Penguins game, they were down like 3-0 going into the third period. It was like everyone was getting ready to rip their hair out. And this miraculous comeback against this Penguins team that was doing really well in the standings. And it's like, okay, everything's fine again. And then they win a couple of games. They played a pretty decent game against the Mammoth. And so it seems like everything's going well. And then a big fat thud against the Bruins. And it had to be the Bruins, right? It couldn't have been, I don't know, the Blackhawks or the Blues or the Minnesota Wild. It had to be the Bruins. Late in the third period of that game, it was 4-3. The Leafs were kind of pushing. And I think it was just something out of a Seinfeld episode that it had to be Minten who scored that the insurance goal. I mean, it could have been anybody. It could have been Pasternak. I mean, it would have been like just something usual, like just Leafs fans are used to it. Pasternak's the Leaf killer. Or I don't know, even like a fourth liner. I don't know, somebody who would have just gotten the goal, but it had to be Minten. And so that kind of spurred the conversation, particularly because the guy that the Leafs kind of decided to keep, which is Easton Cowan, is now in the AHL. And so it's like, well, wait a minute. Did we keep the wrong guy? That's kind of like the debate now at this point. And I'm kind of skeptical to say that they kept the wrong guy, but it kind of seems that that's where this is going. Once again, the Leafs shipped out a pretty good prospect before they had a chance to really decide who it was that should have been on the team. But then again, there were circumstances behind it that were kind of trending that way. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to jump in before we get any deeper into this trade.
Yeah, well, I've been wondering kind of the prospect part of it, because Toronto, obviously because of their success in recent years, it's not like they had this great pool of prospects ready to go. And it seemed like the talk around the deadline was if they have anybody to go, it's Fraser Minten and Easton Cowan. These two guys who are 20 and 21 years old. They're good prospects. I wouldn't say anyone was like dynamite. Heck yeah, need these guys up right now. But it was basically all Toronto had. So I did want to go in real quick before kind of the details of the trade. The feelings around Easton Cowan this year. He obviously got some run in the early part of the season. He's back down in the AHL. Is that I know everything's a bit of an overreaction in Toronto versus other markets, but is that something where they're like, are we going to get a tune out of this kid in the NHL level?
Right. Well, it's kind of like it seems more like a failure on the part of the organization, because it seems like they rushed Cowan into the lineup. He was going to get every chance to play. That was evident. He'd actually had some good chemistry with Scott Laughton and Stephen Lorentz on the fourth line, but it was like, okay, this is your top prospect, so why would you put him on the fourth line playing fourth line minutes? So it was like, okay, let's put him on the top line with Matthews and Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes. But then it wasn't kind of working for Cowan. He showed some pretty good flashes. I like the fact that he wasn't afraid to dig for pucks and that sort of thing, but that's not really what he was all about. Cowan is kind of like a Mitch Marner clone in many ways, not quite the same, but kind of like around there, a little bit undersized, very fast, good hands, good playmaking abilities. So, but this is a 20-year-old kid playing with one of the best centers in the world, if you want to say that about Austin Matthews. And he was playing with a workhorse that's Matthew Nye. So you want to have someone that can actually make plays, and Cowan really wasn't there. So he just kept sliding down the lineup, and then he was getting some third line minutes. He was playing with John Tavares, and in fact, he actually had some pretty decent chemistry with John Tavares. But it wasn't going in the right direction, right? And so it just seems like at this point the Leafs are desperate, and they're just trying to make ways of shaking up the lineup as best they can. And so Easton Cowan was a guy that had to go. Nick Robertson has passed him on the team's depth chart. So it's one of those things where it was the writing was on the wall for Easton Cowan, but good thing is that he's going to be playing top 6 minutes with the Marlies in the AHL. And I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back up at some point, especially if there are injuries, at some point in the season.
Talking with Nestor Quixtan of Heavy Sports, the article is "The Maple Leafs Messed Up by Trading the Wrong Prospect." And what I love about it, Nestor, is you really look at kind of the domino effect that led up to this trade. And it's really interesting. It's one that I think a lot of Leafs fans would pounce on in terms of, those who don't like the way they're being managed right now. And I think a lot of Bruins fans didn't realize what went into this. But what role did Mikko Rantanen and Mitch Marner have to play in this Brandon Carlo for Fraser Minten in a first-round pick trade?
Right. Well, it's kind of like one of those conspiracy theory types things, And the thing was that the Leafs were looking to make a splash. They really wanted to go all in. And contrary to what Mitch Marner has said in public, and in the media, he checked out at the beginning of the season. It was obvious that he wasn't coming back. But the tip-off was an interview he did with Elliot Friedman at the beginning of last season. It was totally staged and whatnot. Now, I don't want to get into Marner, but the point is that the Leafs knew he was out the door. So they wanted to get something in return. Meanwhile, the Colorado Avalanche were desperate with the Rantanen situation because they didn't want to pay him more than Nathan McKinnon. So they kind of fleeced the Carolina Hurricanes. Then the Hurricanes realized that they made a mistake. They were like, holy cow, we traded for this guy, but now we can't really keep him because he doesn't really want to stay. Now, Rantanen did say afterwards that he did kind of want to stay in Carolina, but they jumped the gun. The Hurricanes moved preemptively. They traded him. And so when they were shopping Rantanen, the Leafs were one of the teams that said, hey, we could use this guy. He could replace Marner on the top line with Austin Matthews. And so one of the guys that came out with this was Nick Kypreos. And part of that trade was, we'll give you Easton Cowan, Fraser Minten. I believe a first-round pick was involved for Rantanen. And they had a $100 million 8-year contract on the table. It's like, it's here, just ready to sign. As soon as you come in, right off the plane, we'll have everything for you. Carolina was like, sounds good, but yeah. So then Brad Treliving was ready to push the red button with all the nukes coming out and said, well, we'll give you Marner. We'll give you Marner, first-round pick, and your choice of Cowan or Minten. And that really seemed enticing to the Hurricanes. Now, according to the legend, if you will, the reason why the Carolina Hurricanes didn't want to make that deal with the Leafs was because they were afraid that if they did, they would run into them in the Eastern Conference Final. And that was actually pretty close to happening. So they thought, well, we'll take the deal with Dallas and we'll get Logan Stankoven. And I don't know if I wrote that, but I did mention that. It was ironic that it was Minten that beat them on Saturday, and it was Stankoven that beat them on Sunday. And so it's like, I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right?
You can't. You really can't.
and so Stankoven scores a game winner after the Leafs blew a 4-2 lead on Sunday. And so you get the situation where the Leafs are like, okay, well, we still have Minten, we still have Cowan, so we got to do something. And that's probably one of the worst spots a GM wants to be in, where you have to do something because you have the media pounding on your door, you have fans with torches and pitchforks at outside the castle walls, and the Leafs had to do something. One of the biggest areas that they had to address last season was that right shot on the top pairing. So they've been trying a bunch of different people that didn't really work. Morgan Riley, to his defense, was doing a pretty good job, but he's more of an offensive defenseman. So they needed someone who was a little more defensively reliable. And the guy that they actually wanted was Luke Shen. But Luke Shen ended up going to Winnipeg. And so it was like, what do we do now? We wanted Shen because he had good chemistry with Riley the last time he was in Toronto. But now he's in Winnipeg. So then they pivoted to Brandon Carlo. One of the things that was out there for a little while was that the Leafs wanted Rasmus Andersson, and that was a pretty hot rumor over the summer. But Calgary wasn't too keen on moving Andersson, so it was Brandon Carlo. And a lot of the chatter was like, yeah, Carlo's a great defensive defenseman. He'd be a very good fit for Morgan Riley, but he's kind of on the downhill. So the Leafs don't really know what they're going to get. And to be honest, Carlo's played pretty well, considering some of the defensemen that the Leafs have had in the past. So and he's given Riley the chance to kind of like do his own thing. Unfortunately, Carlo's been kind of inconsistent this season, and this is why the trade is aging pretty badly. So when the deal was made, it was like, okay, so now we have a choice. Well, is it Minten or is it Cowan? And the Bruins wanted Minten. Now, the mistake was that the Leafs have this problem now with this incredible lack of center depth. So you've got Matthews and you've got Tavares. Fine. But it's beyond that that's really become a problem. So the Leafs got Nick Waugh from the Vegas Golden Knights in the Mitch Marner trade. But then Scott Lawton got hurt. And so it's like, what do we do now? Now you have Max Domi playing on the fourth line, especially after Nikita Zadorov sent Lawton into another dimension a couple of nights ago. And so now you've got Max Domi, who was supposed to be on the wing with Austin Matthews. Now you got him playing on the fourth line. So I'm thinking, well, Minten's not lighting up the scoreboard necessarily in Boston, but he's playing pretty good. So wouldn't he have been a good fit for the team now instead of Easton Cowan? And to make matters worse, Minten's actually looking a little bit better than the ceiling he had originally been projected. So a lot of the talk around Minten Toronto was like, oh, he's a third line center. Yep. Maybe he'll be, in the best of cases, he'll be a good middle six guy, kill penalties.
Penalty killer,
He's not going to score a ton of goals, but he could work out okay. And I can see why the Leafs were willing to let Fraser Minten go instead of Easton Cowan. Now all of a sudden, they could use that center, right? I mean, Tavares is playing well beyond his age. I mean, his numbers are amazing for what is expected of him. Matthews is holding his own pretty well, but then after that, it's off a cliff. And if you think if another center gets hurt, then who's up next? And that's where probably the biggest blunder. Now, before we get into anything else, I would say that, okay, Minten, fine. But what really concerns me is that first round pick. That's what really concerns me. So I was thinking about that this morning, where this is looking eerily, this Carlo Minten trade is looking eerily familiar to the Phil Kessel trade. Because in that trade, the Leafs gave up two, and it had 2 first round picks, and ended up being Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton. Mm-hmm. So who's to say that the Leafs don't all of a sudden just, go out in a glorious blaze and they just burn out completely, and there's no other choice but just to torch the whole team, and they'll trade Austin Matthews, and then they'll get rid of everybody, and then it's another Shannon plan again, and we start over. And all of a sudden now the Bruins have like a top 10 pick, or that pick's top 5 protected, but they have another pick like this. And guess what? It's like the 6th overall pick, and they end up getting another star, a star that the Leafs could have used to build their team, right?
Yeah.
Now, the flip side to that is, well, let's say the Leafs turn it around, they win the Stanley Cup, who cares, right?
Right.
That's kind of like the mentality in Toronto. But judging from the way things are going, I mean, the Leafs, the Edmonton Oilers, the Florida Panthers, they're in a tough spot right now. And so there's no guarantee that they're going to come back and just go on this amazing run in March and April and cruise through the playoffs and then win the cup, and who cares what happened in October and November. But I don't know, man. It's one of those things where this is shaping up to be a lot like what happened in that Phil Kessel trade. And I hope, at least for the sake of Leafs fans, right, it doesn't go in that direction. But fortunately, it kind of is.
Yeah, and it's fascinating looking at the deal that almost happened with Carolina, because now you're in this hole if you're the Leafs, right? Like you mentioned it, they've got the pitchforks, they're banging on the glass, they're ready for a big deal, and like you've shown your hand, and now the Bruins, who don't have a ton of leverage but have somebody that you want, say, well, we'll take one of those prospects in a first-round pick. Sure, if that's what you're giving out here, even though Brandon Carlo is not Mikko Rantanen or anything close to it, right? All of a sudden, you've shown your hand enough that you're like, well, we still got to bring in some guys to fill out our team, and I guess to a lesser extent appease the fan base. But you mentioned it with the Kessel trade. We go back even further, the Andrew Raycroft, Tuukka Rask trade, and now what could potentially come of this Fraser Minten and the first round pick trade for what will be at best, a year and a half of a good middle pairing defenseman in Brandon Carlo. If going forward, if the Leafs see a 617 area code coming up on the caller ID around a trade deadline or a trade time, and they're getting a call from Boston, do Leafs fans just want them to never pick up the phone with the Bruins again?
Right. Well, you know what? I don't think at this point the Leafs really have much choice. I mean, they're pretty much out of picks. The prospect cupboard is pretty barren. If you look at roster guys, I mean, the whole David Kampf situation, I mean, that's a pretty nasty black eye for the organization, because they've tried to trade the guy, and it's been out there that, I mean, they want to get something back for the poor guy. And it seems like the most they're getting is a 6th or 7th round pick. And I mean, why would you give the Leafs anything more than that if you know that they're in the position they're in, as you've mentioned? They've shown their hand, and then there's not really much they can do in terms of leverage. So really, if Boston comes calling and says, hey, we'll give you Casey Middlestad, you guys are desperate for a center, we'll give you Casey Middlestad, but let's look at the prospects. And that reminds me of the Scott Laughton trade. They gave up a Russian prospect named Nikita Grabenkin. And I mean, he's not setting the world on fire in Philadelphia, but he's looking pretty good. He's looking like that puck hound that the Leafs have needed to play on the top line, kind of like the Zach Hymans or Michael Buntings of the world that once played with Austin Matthews. Now, all of a sudden, you've got Scott Laughton, who's hurt. They gave up a first-round pick. And there's this prospect that's doing pretty well. So who's to say that, Boston or any other team for that matter says, hey, let's look at and see what's in the pipeline for the Leafs. They look and they say, hey, we could probably take this guy and work with him and, just take the pressure off being in Toronto, and let's see what happens. And more often than not, those prospects have actually worked out pretty well for other teams. And it's just fascinating. I guess it would have to be an organizational thing where developing players isn't as good as other organizations. One of the teams I mentioned is the Colorado Avalanche. They're in a similar situation. They don't have as many draft picks, but they've managed to turn 7th round guys into regular lineup fellas. There's a kid named Gavin Brindley who the Columbus Blue Jackets gave up. They actually gave Brindley in the Charlie Coyle trade, and now Brindley scores the overtime winner a few nights ago. So you kind of need to have that sort of psychic ability to see value where other teams may have missed it, right? And in that situation, the Leafs have kind of struck out. Boston has done a great job of I don't want to say fleecing, at least as far as the Minten trade is concerned. I don't want to call it fleecing just yet, because there is a chance that Minten's kind of a flash in the pan, and he kind of regresses to that third center ceiling, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, the Leafs were right after all. Mm-hmm. But I dare say this, and I don't know if it's going to get out there, but to me, Fraser Minten's kind of looking like Patrice Bergeron. And that's a pretty bold claim, but he's looking like a pretty good two-way center. And if he does get to that level where, he can put up, 60, 70 points, let's say, and he's in the Selke conversation, oh my God, that's going to be one of those things where Leafs sites and, Leafs writers are going to be, we still write about the Kessel trade. It's like looking back on it, so many years later, it's like, what would have happened if the Leafs had Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton? And then, they drafted Nazem Kadri, and then, they would have picked up a pretty good goalie here or there. And then all of a sudden, the Leafs would have looked fantastic in the 2010s, right? 2010s, instead of just tearing everything down and going through that tank in 2016. So, it's part of those big what ifs,
And I don't know if I think that would have been a good core to build around. I don't know if Tyler Seguin would have been quite as good as Austin Matthews, but we'll see how that goes. But Nestor Quixtan of Heavy Sports, the article one more time for you is called "The Maple Leafs Messed Up by Trading the Wrong Prospect." Great late night read for me last night, and so thankful that you were able to come on the show, Nestor. We really
no worries, my pleasure.
There he goes. Nestor Quixtan of Heavy Sports, breaking down how this Bruins Leafs trade happened and potentially a new Patrice Bergeron in the Bruins black and gold. Let us know what you think about the trade. Who won it? Have the Bruins fleeced them already, or are you not ready to go that far? Let me know in the comment section below. Then be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Of course, we come at you live every weekday, noon Eastern time, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well on the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stuart. When we come back, we're going to talk a little baseball. We're going to shift it to the Red Sox because they are in for all kinds of these great starting pitchers, right? First, it was Joe Ryan. Then it was Tarik Skubal. Now, there's another second ace that they are linked to, and this one is actually pretty possible. We'll tell you why they want this National League star coming up next on the Wicked Boston Show. NFL fans, what's your favorite touchdown? For me, it's the next one. Because with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in. From first touchdown scorer to anytime TD props, or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. Lines and odds subject to change. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Your team hitting pay dirt pays out to you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code CAMSHOW. That's code CAMSHOW for new customers to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort Kansas, pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
At 4U Health, we believe wellness and lab testing should be accessible, inclusive, and yes, fun. With our tech-powered at-home lab test, you save time and money while feeling your best. 4U Health. Visit 4uhealth.com today. With a focus on performance, design, and customer service, we're here to help you work smarter, not harder. Join us on our journey to simplify your world. Visit acasis.com today. That's ACASIS.com today.
Polo Neuro is a new kind of wearable that helps your body recover from stress, that helps you calm down and feel better. You sleep better, and you can get back to being yourself. Learn more at apolloneuro.com.
But boy, it looked effortless.
Man, watch this.
Layups, floaters, threes. He was like an unsolvable equation.
I was born like this.
His resilience, his strength, his belief, adversity never stood a chance.
Know your power.
Introducing Muck-Off's classic pink bike cleaner, powered by revolutionary nanotechnology that breaks down dirt and grime on a microscopic level while protecting your bike's delicate finish. us.muc-off.com.
The You Like Air 3, launched in 2023, ushers in a new era of sapphire ice cooling technology, offering nearly painless hair reduction in just 3 weeks. That's ULIKE.com. You Like.
Man, how about Nestor Quixtan, man? You want someone to break down a trade from all angles? That's the guy to do it. And potentially a new Patrice Bergeron on the Boston Bruins. I don't know about you guys. I'll take that. Hand up. I'll be okay trading away Brandon Carlo if it means you get another Patrice Bergeron. And I know he doesn't mean like Hall of Fame or first ballot, but I absolutely see what he's talking about. Like Fraser Minten, dude, that he has incredible hockey IQ even already. I mean, that line change, it's crazy. I break down a line change, but in the game against Ottawa in overtime, which led to the Bruins drawing a penalty and was almost going to be the game-winning goal, Fraser Minten makes an unbelievable play. He's about to skate into the zone one-on-one, and instead he brings it back out. And of course, the whole building's like, oh, come on. And he passes it back to, I want to say it was McAvoy. And then he gets off the ice onto the bench by the middle stanchion there. And David Pastrnak comes onto the ice at the blue line. It was a perfect 200 hockey IQ play. And Pastrnak comes in at the blue line. It turns into a 2-on-1. Pastrnak draws a penalty. The Bruins win the game in overtime on what becomes a 3-on-3 after a 4-on-3. So I love having Fraser Minten on this team. And I loved that deal from the beginning. No shade to Carlo, but it was going in the wrong direction. And I think Toronto really thought they were getting a big, beefy, top pairing defenseman who could play with an edge. And Brandon Carlo is just not that. He, at his best, he's a decent puck mover. He's not very physical. He's rarely out of position when he's at his best. He was out of position for the Fraser Minten goal. It is pure Leafs dystopia once again. But shout out to Nestor Quixtan. And by the way, if you're looking for more Bruins coverage, we actually did record another episode, and we'll drop another episode today of the Garden Level podcast. Myself and Dan Conlon, Rogue Media Sports Network, nothing but Bruins talk on there. So check that out. A lot of Sturm talk and a lot of talk about that trade as well. Speaking of trades, the Red Sox are thrown once again into a trade for somebody else's ace to put beside Garrett Crochet. First, it was Joe Ryan. Then it was Tarik Skubal last week. And both of those have some legs to it, right? Especially Joe Ryan. Like, that would make a ton of sense. Now, it's Freddy Peralta of the Milwaukee Brewers. John Morosi, MLB insider, convinced the Brewers will be moving Freddy Peralta. Got to do it. And list the Red Sox as a top contender, not just because they're looking for that second ace, but also because they're willing to trade away some major league outfielders that the Brewers would really, really need. I'm talking Jarren Duran. I'm talking two-time Gold Glove Award winner Wilyer Abreu. These are guys the Red Sox are willing to part with. And other teams, like the Milwaukee Brewers, are going to want them. And I would take Freddy Peralta. This kid can really pitch, man. He's entering his age 30 season. And like Tarik Skubal, he's going to be a free agent after next year. Brewers got a club option for this year. They took a club option for this next year in 2026. And that's a small market team. They can't let him go for nothing. They can't. And so that's why there's probably such a willingness to move him before this next season starts. And that's mainly because this dude absolutely shoves. Is he Tarik Skubal? No. Almost nobody is. Okay. Joe Ryan, that's probably a better comp. Like, for all the things we love about Joe Ryan, and I love him too, I would love for him to be on this Red Sox team next year. Freddy Peralta has a lot of the same upside, just in a different style. He's coming off his second All-Star season, third straight year of over 200 Ks, and all of them had 165 plus innings pitched. Can I get a round of applause for that? Because every big time pitching, I don't want to say prospect, but big time starting pitcher that's on the market these days, you don't know if they have the durability. Guys like Garrett Crochet is a great example. They don't pitch a lot. Ranger Suarez, another one, a free agent this year. They don't pitch 160, 170 innings, let alone 200, because nobody does that anymore. And so you don't know if these guys can go for a full season. You don't know that before you trade top 10 prospects or extend them by 5 or 6 years. But you do know that with Freddy Peralta. You don't even know that with Joe Ryan, who's older than Freddy Peralta, if he can go 170 innings in a season. That is a fantastic luxury to have. He's done it 3 straight years of 165. Last year, you went out and got Crochet, never pitched 164. This guy's done it 3 straight seasons. Durability test, passed. Check. And oh yeah, he's pretty good at it too. He's coming off a season where he ranked 7th in the majors in ERA, 270. And it might have been his best year in the majors so far. 154 ERA plus, 5.5 WAR for a Brewers team that was hotter than fish grease for most of the season. He should be getting Cy Young votes here in the next week. Like, that's how good he was, man. Those guys don't come available very often. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. We'll talk about it throughout this week as well. The Red Sox are in as good a trading situation as they have been in maybe in my lifetime. But you have to go back about 20 years to think about a time they were in this good a spot. They've got all kinds of prospects, thank you, Heim, that they can trade a couple of them. How many teams would have a Connolly early or a Peyton Tolle in their pipeline and on their team and being like, yeah, we can trade him. We can trade him for a better pitcher. Like, that is like a golden goose to most teams, including the Red Sox the last 2 decades, to have a homegrown pitcher that looked that impressive at times at the major league level. The Red Sox don't have or, they have and. They have both of them. They have their choice of which one they want to keep. And they've got other pitching prospects in the pipeline. And they've got a homegrown talent who was one of the best pitchers in baseball throughout last summer in Brian Bayo. They have got so much flexibility there, to the point where they've got prospects over the last year where they've had to decide which ones they want to extend, which ones they don't. And they've got major league guys that are still in their service time, that still have service time that they're willing to part with. Guys like Wilyer Abreu, who they haven't extended. Guys like Tristan Casas, who they haven't extended. And a guy like Jarren Duran. They would be okay trading all 3 of those guys if it meant upgrading at either a power bat in the middle of the lineup or, maybe more importantly, the number 2 starter behind Garrett Crochet. Like, this is as good a trading position as they've been in a long time. So I know a lot of people are getting tired of hearing these names just constantly thrown out there. Freddy Peralta, Joe Ryan, Tarik Skubal. Who the hell's going to give up Tarik Skubal? Hunter Green, Paul Skeens. You're sick of hearing that, but here's why I keep taking the bait. Because they can make deals for any of these guys, sans Paul Skeens, that they would be comfortable with. And the craziest part about their flexibility is they already made one of those deals last year. So I had a lot of people in the comment section of the Tarik Skubal segment last week saying how they would never do that, and how it's so against anything Boston would do. Going and getting a big name pitcher in a trade, how are they going to extend him? They don't spend money. I'm like, guys, they did it 11 months ago. They did it. They traded 3 prospects for Garrett Crochet, and then they extended him. Like, if there's anything the Red Sox have done consistently over the last 2 decades, it is trade for big-time starting pitchers, win the trade, and then extend those MFers. Like, it's happened every time. You know, Carl Pavano and Tony Armas Jr. for Pedro Martinez. That worked, and they extended him. Casey Fossum for Kurt Schilling. That worked, and they extended him. Hanley Ramirez and Anibal Sanchez for Mike Lowell and Josh Beckett. That worked, and they extended him. Yohan Moncada and Michael Kopech for Chris Sale. That worked, and they extended him. The extension didn't really work. Garrett Crochet for Kyle Teal and Chase Mydroth and Braden Montgomery. That worked, and they extended him. So don't give me that. Like, I get it. They've had problems spending money the last few years. I understand that. And we've heard these big-time rumors before. But when it comes to a big-time starting pitcher and trading and extending, that is what they do better than anyone in baseball in my lifetime. That's a huge reason why they've got 4 World Series banners, is because of just that. So I will continue to take the bait if it's Joe Ryan, if it's Tarik Skubal, if it's Freddy Peralta or Hunter Green. Because I've seen the Red Sox make these deals time and time again. I'm more hesitant to say they're going to pay market value for a big-time slugger like Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber. They should, but I'm hesitant to say they will because of their history. It's the exact opposite when it comes to starting pitchers. This team does it better than almost anyone in baseball, actually. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Freddy Peralta, good fit? If not, who's the pitcher you want to go after? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. It helps me keep my job, and it keeps you up to date on all the great Boston sports news going on in the best sports town in America without any of the BS that Boston Sports Talk Radio is going to give you. It's your lunchtime alternative, live every weekday, noon Eastern time on YouTube, and then wherever you get your podcasts as well. Special thank you to Zach Burke. Special thank you to Nestor Quixtan. And thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Wicked Boston Show with Cam Stuart. We'll see you tomorrow.
Relax with Hemp Delicious. Organically grown hemp, massively blended with delicious organic herbs, responsibly sourced for their holistic benefits. Each sip offers calming, antioxidant-rich wellness. Brewed just for you. Sip the calm with Hemp Delicious.
At Open Goal USA, we're revolutionizing training for both soccer and lacrosse with our innovative portable rebounders. Perfect for players of all ages and skill levels. Visit OpenGOAAALUSA.com and elevate your training today.
Farmhounds offers natural treats and chews made with quality products that support family farm, regenerative agriculture, and humane farming practices. Give your dog the best with wholesome, organic ingredients that promote health and happiness. Shop now at farmhounds.com.
Get paid faster with Bill, the easiest way to send, receive, and manage your payments. No more delays, no more hassle. Whether you're a freelancer or a business, Bill makes payments seamless and secure, simple, fast, and reliable. Sign up today at Bill.com. We are Rogue Media Sports.